What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know.
Hi, everybody. Pete Sardis for The Lawyer You Know. Day one of the Aiden Fucci trial is done. After weeks of pretrial motions, after all the arguments about jury selection, about the possibility of having to move to a different venue, about how many preemptory challenges there's going to be, this case is over. In fact, this case is over before it even started. If you haven't already heard, Aiden Fucci shows up to court today, and before jury selection even started, he changes his plea to guilty. Kind of a big deal, and the way that it happened. Let's talk about that for a moment. Aiden Fucci pled guilty, what we call open, to the court. And what that means is there is no plea agreement. There is no deal with the prosecutors. There is nothing to keep the state from coming in front of the judge whenever sentencing is and putting all the horrible things that Aiden Fucci is alleged to have done and asking the judge to give him a life sentence. On the other side, there is also no limitation on the judge, but for life, because he can't give him the death penalty, to give Aiden Fucci whatever sentence that the court believes is reasonable and appropriate for the crimes he has just now pled guilty for, which is the murder of Tristan Bailey. This is very odd in a murder case for someone to show up to trial after all this rigmarole and just plead guilty open to the court. Now, after the court went through the colloquy, and let's talk what I mean by that. A colloquy is something that is necessary in every plea in the state of Florida. And the judge has to engage the defendant and ask certain questions to make sure that the plea is being made voluntarily, knowingly, and without any duress. And what the court normally will do is they engage in a question and answer set with the defendant. And the questions are sort of like this. Do you understand that you are waiving your right to a jury trial? Do you understand that you're waiving your right to cross-examine witnesses and to have the state prove your guilt beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? Do you understand that you're waiving your right to appeal? And I'll put an asterisk here. He's waiving his right to appeal the conviction. The sentencing hasn't happened, so he still maintains that right. But the court asked him, do you understand that you're waiving your right to appeal your conviction? And kind of go through those details. Are you making this decision knowingly and voluntarily? Has anybody threatened you or made you any promises? And that's a series of questions and answers that the court has to be satisfied. Aiden Fucci answered honestly and with knowledge and intent before the court will accept the plea of guilty. At this point, the judge has accepted the guilty plea. Sentencing, if you listen to the media, has been set off for a couple of weeks. Between you and me, I think it's going to be a lot farther than that, and I'm going to tell you why. In a case like this, I'm expecting a pre-sentence investigation is going to happen. Even if the court doesn't require it, I'm guessing the defense is going to want to partake in this process. Why? During the pre-sentence investigation, there's a lot of meat and potatoes that the defense gets to put into the judge's consideration for sentencing. For example, Aiden Fucci's history, any relevant background, anything in his childhood, anything in his psychiatric profile, all of those things come into play. That way they can make a better record, let's put it that way, a better record for the judge to consider before sentencing. So it takes a long time for these processes to go through. I'm anticipating that's going to take a couple of months at a minimum for a pre-sentence investigation to yield a pre-sentence report, and for all the things that have to happen, including an interview with Mr. Fucci, to conclude so that probation can come up with their document, their report to give to the court. So I'm anticipating, guys, a few months before this case goes to sentencing. think of it from the other perspective, the part of the government, the state. This is not a simple case. This is a case with a lot of emotion. This is a case where the family of Tristan Bailey has been intimately involved in the process. They have shown up. They have done the things that they need to do, as hard as those things are, to make sure that the prosecution can go forward. I anticipate that for the state to be prepared for a sentencing like this, there's going to be time that they're going to need in order to get their witnesses together, to get all of the evidence lined up. I mean, I know they're just prepared for a trial, but still lined up and ready to go for the purpose of sentencing. Because remember, because this is not going to trial, the judge has not had the opportunity to hear all of the information as if it would have come out in evidence. So the state is going to have to put this on in front of the judge for the court to consider for purposes of sentencing. So it's still something the court's going to have to do. I think this sentencing is going to be long. Could be a day, could be more than a day. So let's see how it goes. Tell me what your thoughts are about. Let's kind of put some bets on how long it's going to take this sentencing to happen. But from my perspective, I'm giving it at least 2 months before they're prepared to have the sentencing. Now, let's kind of take a step back and talk about the actual change of plea. Apparently, after the colloquy was over and the court was satisfied that Aiden Fucci was entering into this plea of guilty by his own volition, without any promises, without any threats, obviously knowingly and voluntarily doing what he was doing. Aiden Fucci asks if he can make a statement. The court obliges, and he says that he is sorry to the Bailey family and to his family. Was this genuine? I don't know. You guys, if you see some of the videotape, if you look at some of the media that was covering this today, you tell me what you think. Do you think it was genuine, or do you think that this is Aiden Fucci knowing that there's a possibility to get some extra points, let's put it that way, some leniency for accepting responsibility and avoiding having to put the Bailey family through this trial? So I leave that to you. You guys tell me what you think. Did he have a moment of clarity where he accepted responsibility and spared this poor family weeks, or at least a week, if not weeks, of litigation, of having to relive their child's murder, to having to see the autopsy photos, having to listen to the experts testify about knife wounds and defensive wounds and how different stab wounds entered and penetrated the body at different angles to demonstrate that these were intentional as opposed to accidental stab wounds, things like that. To have to listen to Aiden Fucci's discussions with his friends, the comments that apparently have gone back and forth inside the jail, where Aiden Fucci had threatened some inmates that he would stab them too, threatened some of the guards, telling them that if they don't watch their back, he'd stab them, things like that. So is this him just playing the game, knowing that he's cooked? There's no way he's beating the trial, so he's pled guilty, and now he's trying to butter up the court by accepting responsibility. Or do you think it was genuine? You tell me what you think down below in the comments. Let's talk about what he's looking at and kind of what this is going to play out over the course of the next few weeks. As you know, Aiden Fucci, even though this is a murder trial, is not facing the death penalty. He is facing life in prison. That life in prison has the possibility for a review after 25 years. He is a youthful offender by definition, so there is some ability for the defense to ask the court to show leniency because of his age at the time of the crime. Anybody under the age of 25 that doesn't have a criminal history can ask for youthful offender consideration. I'm sure the defense is going to do that. I'm sure that the defense is going to ask for a lot of things, but let's see how it goes. Why do you guys think this played out the way it did this morning? Why show up to court in a suit, ready to go, have the court bring in the however many jurors they were going to bring in order to get this jury selection done? Why go through all of the motions, all of the argument in front of the court to plead guilty? Do you think that the lawyers knew, meaning Aiden Fucci's lawyers knew that he was going to plead guilty this morning? Or do you think this was a decision that was made at the 11th hour right before all the proceedings began? I'll tell you, this is very uncommon. Yes, people plead guilty the morning of trial. Normally not when there's life in prison on the table. Normally, they don't plead guilty open, meaning that there is no deal with the state that, that kind of either limits the sentence or, at least has some deal with what the state will present or what the state will ask for before the court. So none of that has occurred. It is kind of, Aiden Fucci's butt's hanging in the wind, as we say. The court can sentence him to life in prison. The state is not obligated to do anything but ask for life in prison. Other than that, let's talk about, he's looking at 25 years. Like I said, in 25 years, he may ask for a reconsideration. I think it's going to be a difficult prison sentence for Mr. Fucci. I think he's going to go to adult prison from all that I can tell. Even though he's still a teenager, there's a possibility that they may send him to a Department of Juvenile Justice facility until he turns 18, at which point they'll send him back to adult prison, big boy prison. Again, at that point, he spent the formative years of his life behind bars. He will have been nothing but hardened by the time he gets to adult prison at 18, presuming that's where he goes. He's been sitting, even though he's been in solitary for the most part of the last 8 months or so. He's been sitting in an adult jail the entire time. So I promise you, he has had an experience that was not easy on him. And not that I want you to have pity on him, but understand, until this morning, he was innocent until proven guilty. And now he has pled guilty. He's accepted the responsibility for stabbing Tristan Bailey 114 times on Mother's Day a couple of years back. So with that, this trial is over. I do not anticipate we're going to see anything tomorrow or, frankly, in the next few weeks until sentencing is scheduled. I will keep you posted as that happens. As soon as we actually have a date, I'll follow it and kind of let you know when that's going to be. And we'll try to keep an eye on it to see if it gets continued, if it's actually going to be set for a couple of weeks and gets set off again, or if the parties come in front of the court and just say, look, this is how much time we need to do a pre-sentence report. This is how much time the state needs to prepare to have all their witness statements, to have all their, whoever's going to testify at the sentencing phase of this case together, so that the court can hear all of the relevant facts and make a decision. I anticipate that there are going to be some experts that are going to testify on behalf of both the state and the defense, talking about Aiden Fucci's ability to formulate the intent for this particular crime at age 14. They're probably going to have somebody that's going to come talk about the psychological effects of how a young person's mind develops over time. We're going to find out if there was any abuse, neglect, something like that in Aiden Fucci's history that may have developed these preconceptions that led him to commit murder. I'm sure we're going to be talking about Satan worship and all of those photographs, those satanic photographs that he had in his possession that we understand his friends may have given him. We're probably going to talk about what the emotional and psychological implications are of a 16-year-old now going to adult prison for the remainder of his life. So I'm anticipating we're going to see a lot. Tell me your thoughts below. I know I kind of keep going back to this. What do you think we're going to see? What do you think the defense is going to argue for purposes of leniency at trial? Do you think Aiden Fucci is going to show up and say, "Judge, throw the book at me, send me to prison for life"? Or do you think his defense team is going to put on a solid defense with experts to try to at least convince the court to minimize the exposure that Aiden Fucci faces? So not life in prison, maybe 40 years, whatever the case may be. What do you think the state is going to do? Do you think they're going to go all out on this one? Do you think that they're going to want to sentence Aiden Fucci immediately? Or do you think they're going to also want to wait in order to organize their thoughts and to give the family an opportunity to be prepared for the sentencing phase of this case? But for now, that's all I have for you. If you enjoyed the episode, as always, give me a thumbs up. If you enjoyed this series, obviously subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Leave me your questions and comments down below. I want to know your thoughts so we can kind of develop some thought about what the discussion is going to look like over the course of the next few months. But for now, I'll keep you posted to when sentencing is going to be scheduled for, and we'll let you know and we'll follow it when it comes.